Hello noble home dogs and pup champs. In today's video I will be ranking my top 10 Spider-Man comic costumes. So this is exclusively costumes from the comic books. No movie costumes, no game costumes, none of that. Before we begin, a word from our sponsor Digiarte's WinX DVD. The WinX DVD festive giveaway is now on. Hit the link in the description below for your chance to get a free copy of Digiarte's WinX DVD, a professional tool that can be used to back up your favorite films and TV shows from DVD to MP4. So head to the link in the description below to get your free copy. In 10th place, we have the Ben Reilly suit. Now, in the comic books, Ben Reilly was a clone of Peter Parker, but he's just a little bit different. And this costume very much befits that, as it's a Spider-Man costume, but it's just a little bit different. The layout is a little different this time around. As opposed to the little itsy bitsy spider that Peter Parker has on his chest, Ben Reilly has a big fat massive spider that takes up his entire chest, and it goes all the way around to the back as well, the back having more or less the same design as the front this time around, as opposed to the slick look of the original Peter Parker costume. But old traditional comic book tropes of gloves, belt, and boots, nah, he's got none of that. This is a subversive Spider-Man look, and yeah, it's alright. It reappropriates a lot of the Peter Parker design elements into an interesting new look, but it's not one I'm, in love with. It's got a cult following. There's a lot of people that love this suit, but for me, I'm just, it's not as good as the Peter look, but yeah, there you go. It works, but that's kind of my opinion on Ben Reilly altogether as well. Not really my ideal run of Spider-Man, put it that way. In 9th place, we have Scarlet Spider. Now, Scarlet Spider's design I actually think is kind of interesting, with the sort of torn blue hoodie over the red jumpsuit. It's definitely a different look with a different kind of attitude to it than your typical Spider-Man costume, and I think it's quite a bit more distinctive and a bit more rough around the edges looking than Ben Reilly's other costume, which was in 10th place. It's kind of garish though, but like, I like it a bit more than Ben Reilly's other costume. It's okay, it's pretty interesting, and I think there's a number of different ways you could interpret it, and it has been loosely interpreted in the MCU already with Peter's homemade costume, which I think is the better version of this suit design. But this still works. This is still pretty cool. It's a staple of its time when they wanted a more rough around the edges looking take on Spider-Man. It works. In 8th place, we have Iron Spider. Iron Spider is an interesting suit, I'll give it that. It's got a lot of red on it, and the whole red and gold color scheme coinciding with Iron Man is pretty interesting, and it definitely tells us where Peter was at during the Civil War run, where his allegiances were, and I like the way it was often shaded to look metallic. I think that's a really cool look as well. It's a really interesting suit. It's got 3 legs that can come out of the back of it as well, so it is a functional suit. And yeah, it's interesting, definitely, with that sort of fragmented spider design on the chest and back as well. Like, it's unique. We don't usually see Spider-Man in red and gold either. It's another one that has been reappropriated and reinterpreted into the films, and I think the films did a better job with it than this design here, but it's still, it looks pretty cool, and it's pretty unique, and yeah, like, it's easy enough on the eyes, I guess. It's kind of weird to think this is my top 10 list of Spider-Man comic suits, and my points so far have been, yeah, it could be worse. It's not bad. Oh boy. Well, in 7th place, we've got Kaine's suit, so the edgelord Scarlet Spider take. And yeah, like this is a costume befitting of an edgy Spider-Man, I guess. It's got the red and black color scheme, and again, it does away with the traditional Spider-Man elements such as webbing and such. But it's a unique look, and it feels more sort of uniform than the other Scarlet Spider costume. It feels more like a suit that's made kind of for purpose, as opposed to being too rough around the edges looking. But this is a fierce looking outfit. It's kind of got a no frills quality to it, which I think suits Kaine. And yeah, it looks pretty unique. It's simple, it's clean, it works pretty well. In 6th place, we have Superior Spider-Man Mark II. This suit is slick and clean and really kind of sinister looking. Now, it's obviously a reinterpretation of Alex Ross's artwork made for the original 2002 Spider-Man film, but I think they made it their own here, with a more messy looking webbing section, a more imposing figure it definitely cuts out for Dr. Octavius's Spider-Man, and obviously it's got the gadgetry on the wrists and back, the dark blacked out lenses. It gives off a much more imposing appearance for Spider-Man. Also the way the spider stretches across the chest as well. I think this looks clean, it looks terrific, it cuts out a really cool profile for Spider-Man. This is a really cool suit. We're definitely moving into the suits that I really, really like on this list, and I think Superior Spider-Man Mark II, it's simple, but it's really effective, and it says a lot about Dr. Octavius's Spider-Man in terms of appearance. In 5th place, we have the black suit, the symbiote suit. Now, this suit is iconic as heck and clean as heck, and it looks really awesome to look at. It's not my favorite Spider-Man suit by any stretch, because obviously it is an alternate take on the Spider-Man look. It's a much simpler look. I believe it was originally pitched as a means of not having to draw the webs anymore in Spider-Man's suit, because Spider-Man's suit did take a while for the artist to ink. Like, it's there's a lot of details. That webbing does take time to draw. This is a simplistic take on that design, and it's really effective, really clean, and the black and white color scheme looks really, really great. Fun fact, this design was actually submitted by a fan, and originally had a red spider on the chest, and they bought it for, I think, $200, and that was that. He didn't get any more royalties after that. You gotta imagine your design goes on to become like a cult classic Spider-Man costume for the ages, and you get $200 out of it. But I guess, I don't know, like, we don't know how this guy feels. I think part of me would just be happy to see that people really love the suit design that I made, but I don't know. I don't know. There's gotta be some level of, gosh, had I known. In 4th place, we have Superior Spider-Man Mark I. Now, this is a really interesting reappropriation of Peter's suit design. It's almost a direct translation, but it's like, take the Peter Parker Spider-Man costume and make it look technological, functional, and kind of evil looking. Like, make it look a bit more mysterious. Like, Spider-Man's costume has always been one of the more inspiring looking costumes. I mean, you can light it to look intimidating, but it generally looks inspiring and exciting to look at. So how do you kind of reverse that? Turn it inside out, but maintain all of the exact same traits? The Superior Spider-Man Mark I does that. Gone is the red and blue color scheme, replaced with a very muted, almost orangey red and black color scheme, with a sort of metallic look to it. Everything's got these very sharp edges to it. It's all very pointed looking. The lenses look more like goggles, and they look kind of soulless. They're not all expressive and friendly like Peter Parker's lenses typically look. I think the lenses are what seal the deal for me on this costume as well, and like the central, like where the little webs meet in the center of his face, looks almost kind of beaky, like it could attack you, and he's got talons on his feet, which, okay, I'm a bit mixed on those. But this is a frightening looking take on Spider-Man. This is like, if Doc Ock made his own Spider-Man costume, yeah, this is what it would look like, and I think that's why I really like this costume. In 3rd place, we have Miles Morales' suit in the Ultimate Spider-Man run. Oh man, what an incredible reinvention of Spider-Man's costume. So we're back to a red and black color scheme, but with black being the primary color of this costume, and red taking up the motifs, and that looks fantastic. But I also just love the layout of this costume. It's like the perfect modernization of a Spider-Man costume. Gone are the old traditional comic book tropes of a belt and gloves and boots, replaced with this very slick, very clean looking costume with this fingerless gloved look, a really iconic and distinctive spider motif on the chest and back, and it just looks absolutely phenomenal. This is the perfect redesign for Spider-Man, definitely. Easily my favorite major redesign of the Spider-Man suit. In 2nd place is the traditional Spider-Man costume, the old red and blue, with the little spider on the chest and the white eyes with the black rims, a design that was very much refined by John Romita Sr.'s very clean art style, and a design that would very much carry Spider-Man through the ages. This would go on to be Spider-Man's probably most iconic design we'd ever get. You think classic comic book Spider-Man, you tend to think this. It is iconic, it is perfect, it is timeless. but it's still not my #1 favorite. But before we get to that, we're gonna do a few quick honorable mentions. So, Ultimate Spider-Man, a lot of people tend to refer to that as a redesign. I don't see how it's a redesign. It's just Spider-Man as drawn by Mark Bagley. Yeah, the lenses are a bit more rounded. Okay, that's really about it. Like, the lenses have always changed a lot throughout the 616 era, so, like, I don't see this as a different Spider-Man costume. I just see this as the classic Spider-Man costume. So, yeah, nothing wrong with it, but I just don't see it as a different suit. The Ends of the Earth suit is probably one of my more favorite takes on the Spider Armor costume. Spider Armor, I think it's a silly thing. Like, you know, it completely impedes Spider-Man's fighting style. You know, you can't... Spider-Man's most effective in like a spandex costume, so I'm just iffy on Spider Armors, but I do think the Ends of the Earth suit is probably the best one of that bunch because it retains that classic Spidey color scheme, and it still very much looks like a Spider-Man costume, so yeah, that's why that one's my favorite Spider Armor. Then we have All New, All Different, which, it's a weird reappropriation of the Spider-Man costume. I think the blue light on the chest is totally unnecessary. I don't like the fact that it's armored. And, yeah, I'm just very iffy on it. Sorry, I'm a huge fan of Alex Ross, but this design for me, eh. And then, of course, Spider-Man 2099, which is it's a great suit, but it just doesn't really land in my personal favorite list, because, it's pretty cool. I'm just not big on the whole, you know, skull spider motif and stuff, and I tend to think futuristic Spider-Man, there's more you could do with that kind of design than this. But I do like the red and black color scheme, which commonly gets misinterpreted as red and blue, but whatever. Anyway, let's move over to my #1 pick for the best comic book Spider-Man suit, and that is the original suit, as designed by Steve Ditko and later reappropriated by Todd McFarlane. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's the same fucking suit as the traditional suit, you absolute hack, but no, shut your fucking face. It's different. For starters, it's red and black. Now, Ditko would go on to bring in the red and blue, that's a common misconception that John Romita Sr. did that, but this suit, red and black. In the earliest run, it was intended as red and black. They would commonly use blue to highlight black segments so it didn't look too inky. I love the giant round spider on the chest as well. I think that is probably my favorite spider design. I like the narrow, sort of mean, fierce-looking eyes. The webbing is all a lot more bunched together than it is on the traditional Spider-Man costume. And he's got these little web wings under his armpits, which I just think are a fantastic design element. As well as that, the spider on his back is a lot less rounded. But I don't know what it is about this suit, but it just looks like a homemade suit that's been stitched together. And I don't know how they managed to bring that across in, like, classic comic book art without much shading or anything like that. But this suit for me just screams teenage Peter Parker made this, and I just love that. I think it's a fantastic looking costume. And I prefer red and black for Spider-Man with web wings to the traditional red and blue personally, but that's a personal preference. And I like how those webbing patterns, they're not messy webs, but they're definitely not as cleaned up as they are on, say, the John Romita more traditional Spider-Man costume. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic looking suit. It's the iconic Spider-Man costume for me. The original, the best. The one that speaks a lot to a teenage Peter Parker. But what do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below are links to the giveaway, as well as different social media feeds, a fundraiser, and a link to my Patreon, and a join button for if you're feeling extra generous and extra supportive. But of course, you don't have to do that. That's not something I expect anybody to do, but I just appreciate all the help I can get. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.